Hello and thanks for tuning in to the show that goes around the continent to bring you stories near and far. I'm Joke Rogers at Channels Television here in Lagos, and I'm joined by Vincent McCory from the Voice of America in Washington.
Well, thanks. I'm Vincent McCory at the Voice of America. Happy to be with you again for another edition of Africa 54. Let's start off with the latest from Nigeria. Channels Television in Lagos brings you that story.
Nigeria's Population Commission has scheduled the country's national census for March and April 2023, same year as the general elections. This is one of the several decisions made at the Council of State meeting in Abuja, which had all the nation's surviving heads of state in either physical or virtual attendance. Nigerians have expressed mixed opinions on the census, including its timing.
Population census, the painstaking process of collating, compiling, and publishing demographic, economic, and social data of a country at a given time. In Nigeria, the last head count was conducted in 2006. Come next year, the country will conduct its first census in 17 years and attempt to accurately capture its population size, currently estimated at more than 200 million. This announcement is generating debates among Nigerians. For some, it's timely. For others, it's ill-timed.
Our expectation is that this time around they are going to deploy sophisticated technology that will enable actual figures, that is really existing in the country to be documented.
What's the percentage of Nigerians that even have their national identity cards? How do we know who is a Nigerian and who is from another neighboring African country, since our borders are so porous that anyone can come through?
It coincides with the election year, and we all know what the country used to be in an election year. There is tension, there is whatever you call, there is political thuggery and all sorts of things. And in fact, we have to consider the insecurity in the country, especially in parts of the country.
Enumerators who are to carry out the census will be sourced from communities where the census will be conducted, because understanding of the context will improve the information, will produce quality information in those communities.
If there are instruments in place, it's a good move, and it will help us as a country to actually determine the number of people that we have. It won't be like we are just forecasting.
Some of these reservations seem to have been built into the plan. Officials of the National Population Commission say the agency will deploy appropriate use of technology for the exercise.
What the Commission has decided on now is that it's a digital census, and biometrics is also digital, but the level of biometric we will take, the Commission is yet to decide on. I'll come back here and let you know.
The ready-made arguments for a census are, but not limited to, the formulation of economic policies, determination of population density, and distribution of resources. These and more are what Nigerians are expecting when the exercise is eventually conducted. Dari Idu, Channels Television News.
Joining us to discuss this is the Chairman, National Population Commission, Nasir Kwara. Glad to have you today on Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
So come next year, Nigeria will conduct its first census in 17 years. For some, it's timely, and for others, it's ill-timed. What informed the decision to hold the exercise at that time?
It is timely that we are conducting census at the time that we're going to conduct. I don't know about ill-timing, yes. I know we have issues about insecurity. We have issues about the census, the elections around the corner. Yes, but it's better we take the census at the time we're taking. We've navigated to make sure there are no clashes with the election political activities and the issue of insecurity. The government and the security agencies are helping to give cover to our staff that go out in the field. to carry out the exercise.
The Commission says the proposed national headcount is going to be digital. Now, you just spoke about insecurity and how the security agencies will help to ensure this works. But how would doing the digital headcount work in areas where security is a major issue?
We have already a database of all the building stock in the country, their locations, the streets, the hospitals, schools, major infrastructure, including roads and bridges. We have that all in our database. Now, that forms the foundation for the census, because the entire landscape is split into what we call an enumeration area. And in the enumeration area, whatever infrastructure that is there is captured. So the main census, we will update, before the census itself, we'll update the buildings, the codes, and as well as house listing and the household before we go into the actual enumeration exercise. So it is digital and it's going to be accurate, and it will be bereft of all the anomalies that we used to have in census tech in the past.
Right. Talking about those anomalies, are there any other challenges that the Commission is envisaging ahead of the census?
The challenges are all known to us. The issue of insecurity, yes, we will conduct census within this particular situation, but we are believing that we've been talking to the high echelon of the military, and they have promised they are going to provide us security cover. Census taking is not like elections where people are gathered in a place. We just have our enumerators entering into houses from one house to another in an area, enumeration area, and we're hoping that by that time, like it's done in the past, a holiday will be given. There'll be no movement from some hours of the day to enable us carry out the exercise.
Finally, remind us, the benefits of having a proper census figure in the country.
Well, it's important for the purpose of policy making and planning. Let me start from the local level. At the local government level, if in a local government, population is not spread evenly. So you provide a facility based on the population that's there. At the state level, is the same thing, because we use population data for the provision of infrastructure. Then for the private sector, a producer will want to know where his market is and how large his market is, so that he knows where to target his products and services to the area. So census data is the mother of all data. It provides so many things. For even to addressing the security challenge, it provides that kind of data and so many useful information.
Right. Chairman, National Population Commission, Nasser Kwara, thank you for your time today on Africa 54.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Vincent McCory in Washington. U.S. Peace Corps volunteers are returning to overseas service for the first time since the start of the pandemic, which halted the agency's volunteer work and resulted in a global evacuation of personnel in March 2020. Now, as they return to work, volunteers aim to contribute to the global COVID-19 response. Sakib Islam talked with volunteers about what motivates them.
We are so excited to receive you in the Dominican.
Peace Corps staff in Dominican Republic and Zambia are excitedly welcoming overseas volunteers who will collaborate with partners in these countries on pressing issues facing local communities.
Every single volunteer that goes back into service will be expected to really support COVID-19 response and recovery efforts worldwide.
For the first time since its global evacuation in 2020, the Peace Corps is sending volunteers back to service overseas to provide COVID-19 education and promote access to vaccinations. Some volunteers have gradually overcome worries about getting infected with COVID.
I did originally have a reservation about that because I know COVID cases kind of change. The trends have been changing lately, but the Peace Corps has made a big deal about us being socially distant, getting COVID tested.
Giselle Martinez recently graduated college and is going on her first volunteer trip to the Dominican Republic.
For me, the Peace Corps is something I always wanted to do.
But this is Eileen Marks' second attempt to volunteer for the Peace Corps. Her assignment in Paraguay in 2020 was postponed due to COVID-19.
If you're looking for a way to grow as a person, as a professional, to transform your life, to help, to serve others, the Peace Corps might be the place for you.
According to the agency's CEO, the Peace Corps has been serving in the Ukraine for a long time, and it was the Peace Corps' biggest program in the world prior to the evacuation. Now the volunteers are in touch with their host families and connecting people on the ground.
My great-grandfather immigrated from Ukraine to Canada and then from Canada to the United States.
For a volunteer such as Joseph Herslag, who is of Ukrainian heritage, this was a major motivation to serve with the Peace Corps.
This morning I went and looked at the World War II monument and I saw how much they had sacrificed to keep world peace, and that I wish they were here to, tell us what to do.
Herslag hopes peace will triumph in Ukraine at the end. Since the Peace Corps was established in 1961, more than 240,000 Americans have served as volunteers in 142 countries.
Peace Corps is really the idea of the American people.
Saqibul Islam, VOA News, Washington.
Young American men and women.
A training boot camp in Benin Republic is teaching aspiring West African farmers sustainable agriculture with a dose of exercise in a bid to tackle a food crisis in the region. The instructor, Bamidele Laduru, says it's important to be in good shape for agricultural practice and network with other agroecologists from across the African continent.
In the early morning light of rural Benin Republic, trainees are doing jumping jacks. But this boot camp isn't for fitness fanatics or the military. It's for aspiring farmers. This is the 7th edition of the Agro Bootcamp. It's an intensive week-long course aimed at teaching the next generation sustainable farming techniques. But not before some early morning fitness led by instructor Bamidele Laduru.
For agricultural practice, it is very important to be in good shape. And to be in good shape means it's necessary to exercise. And here, it's important to enlighten the spirit as well as the body.
West Africa is facing its worst food crisis on record, driven by, according to aid agencies, conflict and drought. That makes the training in the town of Toribosito more relevant than ever. The concept for the boot camp came from Beninese Nigerian Ngolès Jeton de l'Espoir. It teaches agricultural practices that work with nature and without the use of chemicals. Among the 21 participants is Congolese palm wine maker Jean-Paul Mangata. He's keen to take what he learned back to Kinshasa.
La raison majeure qui m'a motivé à participer.
It's a pleasure because you know that your production model is oriented towards a production model that will help with the planet's survival rather than be an element towards destroying the planet.
His business produces around 60 liters of palm wine and 37.5 liters of fruit fermented wine per trimester. Thanks to the boot camp, he plans to enrich his soil with a combination of different organic techniques. But he says what was most valuable was the connections he made with other agroecologists from across West Africa.
Being divided into groups from different countries allowed us to develop a relationship that is even beyond the training that we learned.
So, while violence has been a driving factor of food insecurity in the region, it's friendship, at least in some small part, that's helping farmers like Mangata thrive.
While global military concerns have turned to Russia's invasion of Ukraine, analysts warn that nations should not ignore Islamist militants who are increasing attacks in Africa's Sahel region and spreading to West Africa's coastal states. French security forces are helping by training the region's militaries for an effective response, as Henry Wilkins reports from Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
On the Ebri Lagoon that stretches through the centre of Ivory Coast's main city, Abidjan, Ivorian and French forces are preparing to face a growing threat. Since 2020, terror groups linked to Islamic State and Al-Qaeda have carried out attacks against Ivorian forces. One Ivorian commando, who declined to give his surname, says the threat is real and they're preparing to face it in every possible way.
In Ivory Coast, we are really focused on terrorism, because in the north part of our country we are very faced to terrorism. So talking about sea, air and land, that's why we are here.
Security analysts say terrorism is spreading to the north of coastal states like Ivory Coast, Ghana, Benin and Togo. The next phase in the Western Sahel's decade-long conflict. Large parts of Burkina Faso, Mali and Niger are experiencing daily attacks targeting military and civilians alike. Since 2020, there have been 17 incidents in the north of Ivory Coast linked to Al-Qaeda affiliated groups, according to the Armed Conflict Location and Event Data Project, including gun battles and roadside bombs. Ivory Coast has sent large numbers of troops to the north in response to these. Asked if terror groups have already co-opted local populations in Ivory Coast, the commander of French forces in the country told VOA,
for the moment, we're seeing that the local population does not cooperate with the jihadist groups, because there is a strong answer from the Ivorian armed forces, but it's really it's a real concern for us.
Asked if the terrorist threat spreading from Burkina Faso is preventable, the colonel said,
we think it's preventable. It is we cannot prevent the threat going to the south, but we can succeed in fighting this threat.
The United States last month carried out Flintlock, an exercise to promote cooperation among regional, NATO and US forces in Ivory Coast for the first time. The US ambassador to Ivory Coast said a sustained effort will be needed against terror groups spreading in the north.
I think the nature of this threat makes it very difficult to eliminate it entirely. I think it can be contained at a really low level, and I believe that the key to success is the support of the population.
Analysts say a military response by itself will not be enough.
These are poorly developed areas where there are glaring social problems, not enough schools, not enough water supply, not enough electricity, not enough jobs for the youth.
Asked if he had a message for terror groups operating in Ivory Coast, Lieutenant William, the Ivorian commando, said,
I don't have any particular message for them, but I'm just ready for them.
Efforts to boost that readiness are continuing. Henry Wilkins for VOA News, Abidjan, Ivory Coast.
The Paragliding Festival, grounded for 2 years by the COVID-19 pandemic, has returned to 2 quiet towns in eastern Ghana. With thousands of Ghanaians in attendance, the event has rivaled some of its most popular years, with around 400 people registering for tandem flights with professional pilots like Jonathan Kwaye.
This year marks Ghana's Paragliding Festival's return to its annual schedule after the COVID-19 pandemic forced organizers to postpone the last 2 years. Around 400 people registered for tandem flights with professional pilots in the towns of Kwahu and Alibi. Dozens brought their own equipment to fly solo. 34-year-old Jonathan Quay first flew in 2006, the festival's second year, as the passenger of an American paraglider. He's been paragliding ever since. Having acquired his tandem certification during the COVID-19 pandemic, he is now the only Ghanaian at the festival certified to carry others into the clouds.
Most people think it's not a safe sport, and people have like a mentality of like, oh no, this is only for white people, that kind of thing. And all those people who say that, they've never been here, so they always discourage their friends, don't do it.
But the scene is growing, with more Ghanaians taking part.
Sometimes representation is good. When you see people that look like you doing what you're doing, they're like, oh, I could also get into it. See what I'm saying? So I feel it's going to really motivate a lot of people.
Quay says paragliding has taught him lessons that have reshaped his professional life in ways he never thought possible. By helping others to fly, he hopes to pass on the principles like patience, tranquility, and risk assessment.
I used to be like quick-tempered. If I drive on the street and you just cross me, I'll just give it to you. But now I look at certain things and I'm like, no, it's not necessary. Let's just let it go. So it has made me a calm person. I look at things like before I make a decision, I have to think and rethink and like just go. Because any decision that I make will affect whatever I do. And it's the same thing in this sport. Conditions are not right, so you just chill, wait. If it's good for you, you can go, So those skill sets that I'm learning has changed my perspective about life, in a lot of things.
The Ghanaian Paragliding Festival is an annual event held during Easter. Like any other year, the Paragliding Festival, which has become a key highlight of the Easter Festival, attracted a number of patrons from different countries. The 4-day event, which started on Friday, April 15th, came to a climax on Monday, April 18th.
Kenya's tea and flour exporters say international sanctions to punish Russia for invading Ukraine have halted millions of dollars of Kenyan trade with Russian importers. While they hope for peace, Kenyan traders are looking for alternatives to ship their products, but face numerous obstacles as the fighting in Ukraine continues. Meantime, tons of flowers destined for Russia are withering. Victoria Munga reports from Kajiado, Kenya.
At Isinya Roses Flower Farm in Kajiado, Kenya, hundreds of workers are packing freshly packed roses. Ordinarily, at least 40,000 stems of the fragrant flowers will be destined for the Russian market on this day. Instead, they are in a danger of withering to death. Exporters say their orders for Russia and neighboring countries have been cancelled while earlier shipments are going unpaid.
Currently, with the issues going on with Russia and Ukraine and with all the sanctions on Russia, we are not able to supply any flowers to Russia because of their payment systems, which even the banks have been stopped or banned by the SWIFT system, which has really affected us.
Kenya is also a major exporter of tea to Russia, accounting for an estimated $60 million annually. Tea exporters say the unprecedented sanctions to Moscow have forced them to suspend trade indefinitely.
The exporters of teas to Russia stopped buying teas from the auction, and for two reasons. The first one being that there's no way they would have opportunity to ship teas to Russia, because many of the shipping lines had already sent a notification that they would not be going through those routes to Russia.
Authorities in Kenya's Fresh Produce Consortium told VOA that they're exploring alternatives to deliver cargo to both Russia and Ukraine, but face numerous obstacles.
I've gotten calls from Ukraine and some business people from Ukraine who are saying, please send us cargo. And we are saying, okay, fine, yes, but to where? By what vessel? And some of them are saying, yeah, we are willing, we are ready to pay up front. The question is, you will receive somebody's money today, you don't know whether you will be alive tomorrow.
Some exporters are looking at alternative markets such as Oman, Turkey and Saudi Arabia to get their tea and flowers off the farms, even though they risk earning less money. Victoria Amunga for VOA News, Kajiado, Kenya.
Well, and that's our show for today. You can find all the continent's top news and world news online at voaafrica.com. Check it out. I'm Vincent Makori in Washington. Channels Television has our last word from Lagos.
We look forward to bringing you another show next week. Do remember that channelstv.com is your source for news and other programming. I'm Joke Rogers. Thanks for watching and goodbye.